Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here's another deck profile update for you guys today. This time it's on Branded Despia, which as you guys know is actually my favorite deck right now, simply because I just love fusion decks, and Branded is just such a great strategy. So yeah, definitely something to consider, and I would definitely recommend picking up this deck if if you want to give it a try. And yeah, so anyway, figured I'd show you guys what I got this time around, and let's get started. So in my last build it was a 50 card build, but this time it's now a 45 card build. So, starting off with 3 copies of Aliber. This is one of your main starters, if not the main starter. Searches out any branded spell or trap, and also has a pretty cool graveyard effect where if a fusion monster is sent to the field, or is destroyed by battle or by card effect, and sent to the graveyard while he's in the graveyard, you can target one effect monster, special summon this card, and then that targeted monster's effects are negated. Now keep in mind, you can only use one effect of Aliber per turn and only once that turn. Next, 3 copies of Tragedy. So Tragedy is just great because, especially with the Lure of Darkness, which, spoilers, yes, I am running it this time around. If you banish it by, or send it to the graveyard or banish it by a card effect, you get to search out any Despia monster. And, of course, it also has a graveyard effect where it recycles your branded spells or traps. But, yeah, same clause, you can only use one effect per turn and only once that turn. But, yeah, Tragedy is just a great way to get things started. So, yeah. Only running one Dramaturgic Despia, simply because it's a negation on legs. And plus, it's a big body if it's used as fusion material. So if it's sent to the grave, sent to the grave for fusion material, it special summons itself back. It also does the same thing if it's banished. So yeah, Dramaturge, an amazing card. Next, we got Ad Libitum, which kind of does the same thing as Dramaturge. The only difference is that if it's used as fusion material, it special summons one other Despia monster. So it's a good way to kind of get another Aliber back on the field and just trigger if it's effective if you haven't already. And also, Ad Libitum also has a power boost effect, which may come up from time to time. So yeah, something to consider too, so definitely try it out. Next, 3 copies of Fallen of Albez is basically one of the main reasons to run it now, simply because you run a lot of fusion monsters that revolve around Fallen of Albez, so you need to really value this card as much as possible. And sometimes, its effect does come up where, you get to super poly one of your opponent's monsters away if they don't have a way to disrupt it. So yeah, Fallen of Albez, definitely an amazing card. Next, 2 copies of Edgem Chain, just because, I am running the Fight for package. For one-ofs, running 1 Albion, which also counts as Fallen of Albez while it's on the field or in the grave. But you mostly just run it because it's an upstart goblin, and definitely it's a good way to just get certain cards into the graveyard a little faster. So Albion, definitely something that I really enjoy playing, and yeah, I'm really happy I brought it back in. I'm still running the 1 Ecclesia simply because I mentioned before that Ecclesia in the past has actually put in a lot of work. It's really good that she recycles herself if a fusion monster hits the graveyard. And not to mention, she's a Sidra, so yeah, you basically summon her like Cyber Dragon if your opponent controls more monsters than you do. And also, she actually acts as disruption, so if you tag her out for a Fallen of Albez, and again, if your opponent has no way to respond to it, you get a free fusion monster, basically. So Incredible Ecclesia is something I like a little bit more than Fairy Tale Snow. I was running Snow, but, I mean, between the two, I think I like Ecclesia just a little bit more because I value my resources, and yeah, for me, like, I have a habit of like playing cards that recycle your resources rather than just like banish them all away. And that's the one things I didn't like about Snow. Not to mention Snow is cost to banish cards. So yeah, that's like, I was kind of conflicted on which one I liked a little bit more. So, but yeah, again, between the two, I like Ecclesia just a little bit more. And plus, even if she does get banished, I can easily recycle her with Libellion. So she's not always gone. So that's one of the things I like about it. Next, still running 1 Spriggan's Kit. Kit is just a great extender. Plus, it gets you a branded spell or trap from hand or from your grave or your deck. I think it also gets it from the banish pile too. Yep, that is banished too. So yeah, definitely something to help you recur more of your resources back. But of course, you do have to place 1 card from your hand to the bottom of the deck, but it's not always an issue. So yeah, 1 kit is just fine. And of course, the 1 Tribrigade Mercurier, which is just a great way to protect your Albez fusion monsters. And not to mention, if it's banished, you get to add a Fallen of Albez or a monster that mentions it except itself from your deck and add it to your hand. So Mercurier is just so good and just adds a lot of value to this deck. Just to go and get them out of the way, for my hand traps, I'm actually only running 1 of each. 1 Ash Blossom, 1 DD Crow, and 1 Effect Veiler. Now you might be wondering, why am I doing this? So these are primarily cross-out targets, which, another spoiler, I am main decking that card now, simply because in this format, hand traps are like everywhere right now, and I don't like to be disrupted. I just want to push for my play, so yeah, that's the whole reason why I'm running these. But the cool thing about this is that even if you cross out Designator, DD Crow, and Veiler specifically, you can always recycle them back with, again, Libellion, because these are light and dark monsters. and you could actually use them as disruption later down the line if you need to go that route. So yeah, Effect Veiler and DD Crow are just really good, especially against the mirror match. So yeah, that's why I decided to do it this way. And not to mention, because I was running so many hand traps, I felt like I wasn't getting any of my combo pieces anymore. So that's why I decided to just like alter things out a bit, and this has actually been working pretty well so far. So technically I'm running 4 hand traps if you count Mercuric, because it is also a hand trap too. But yeah, that's just the thing with this deck right now. It's like I don't want to run too many bricks, and that's just it. All right, so moving on to spells already. Playing 3 copies of Branded Opening. Obviously this is the E-Taily / Rotive of the deck. 3 Branded Fusion, cards broken. Can't say much more than that. 2 Branded Red. You don't really want to run this at 3 simply because if you're going first, and if you open up with this, you really have no way to really use it because you don't have anything in the graveyard, unless you happen to have something. But yeah, Branded Red is just like better off going second. 1 Branded Loss, you know, just the fact that if you can if your fusion summons go through, you get to continuously search, and yeah, it's just good. And of course, when I say continuously, I mean like once per turn, not like you keep searching over and over. Now that card will be way too broken. So yeah, 1 Despia Theater of the Branded, an amazing card just because, you know, the fact that it's a monster reborn and it's a fusion, it's a polymerization field spell. So yeah, just great overall. All right, get these out of the way. Moving on. I'm also running 3 copies of Lure of Darkness, as I mentioned before. This card's just really broken in this deck simply because the fact that A, it's a draw power, and B, if you banish Despian Tragedy, you get to get extra value, so this card always acts as a +1. So I decided to, yeah, just kind of replace Triple T altogether for this card instead, simply because lately Triple T just hasn't been performing as well as it was prior. So yeah, I guess because now that DPE is not in every deck anymore, maybe that's why I just don't run, that's why it's just not resolving as much as it used to. And plus, I'd have to like hard open with it, so. But Allure of Darkness, yeah, you technically have to hard open it with it too, but at least you have plenty of monsters that at your disposal to use it more than Triple T. So, and not to mention, it's not a hard once per turn, so that's one of the cool things about it. I'm only running 2 Fight for Patchwork this time around simply because the third one's usually always dead, and there have been instances where I actually opened up with one of the edge chains. So I decided to go with the ratio of 2, 2, and of course 2 polymerization, and actually feels really comfortable, so no complaints there. 2 Super Poly, you know, just good going second card. In the main, I'm actually main decking 2 copies of Crossout Designator. I was considering the third, but I actually decided to side out the third one just simply because, and you'll see why in just a moment actually. So, but moving on, 1 Call by the Grave to kind of like fill in as the third copy. 1 Foolish Burial, and go and bring out the traps. And this is actually why I'm not running 3 crossouts. I'm running 1 copy of Branded Sword. This is just a good way to, like, if I have to use like McCourier like as fodder for Allure of Darkness, at least, you know, if I can get into Albion, I can just, yeah, send off Branded Sword, banish the Branded Sword, and get back my resources. And that way I'm not like losing hand advantage. And that's the whole reason why I'm running Swords, because again, for my build, you mostly just want to recur your resources, you want to value resources. So that's the whole reason why I'm running this. And of course, 1 Branded Banishment, which is basically a trap card version of Super Poly. And yeah, definitely something that I really enjoy playing. All right, so now moving on to the extra deck. The extra deck is a little different this time around. This time I'm now running 2 copies of Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is probably what makes this deck shine because it's literally the most broken card in this extra deck. The fact that you can send 1 fusion monster from your extra deck to banish 1 monster your opponent controls, non-targeting by the way. And also, if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you get to basically nuke your opponent's field at the end phase of the turn. And of course, it activates right away. So, yeah, like if your opponent doesn't have like a Call by the Grave or anything like that, they're going to be kind of screwed, and they can't really negate it during the end phase because it's already active. So that's why it's so good. 2 Libellion, which basically does the same thing as Albion. You discard a card for cost, and then shuffle back your fusion materials just to perform another fusion summon. Of course, it can't attack on the turn. It performs that effect, but it doesn't really matter. Albion, which also does a fusion summon as soon as it's summoned itself, but of course you don't have to pitch anything for cost, but it banishes the materials. And for my targets for Mirror Jade, running 1 copy of Spring the Iron Dash Dragon, and all of these are going to have like end phase effects where Spring searches out a Spring's monster, which basically would be your kit. 1 Brigand, which gets you McCourier, but keep in mind there's also really good Super Poly targets too, which is amazing. Finally bringing in Titanic Clad, which gets you a Fallen of Albaz. And of course, 1 Alba Lenatus, which actually has two reasons to play this. Not only as a Mirror J target, but if you ever happen to come across a Dragon Link deck, you can just summon out a Fallen of Albus and just contact fusion away with all their best dragons and just, yeah, this card is just crazy good. For my Despia fusions, running 2 copies of Masquerade, 1 Coritus. I'm no longer running Proskinian simply because it just doesn't come out as much as the others do. And plus, like, even though it is easy to make, you don't really need it. 1 Guardian Chimera, which honestly 1 is perfectly fine. If you still want to run 2, you can, but I decided to just stick to 1 for right now. And 1 Dragos Depilia is just another good super poly target. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, for the side deck, I had to make quite a few changes. I'm still playing Token Collector, but I'm running it at 2 this time around. This is just primarily for Sword Soul or the Brave Engine, so yeah, that's the whole reason behind that. 2 Nib, just good for like any combo heavy strategy. 1 Lancia is just another crossout target, but it is also pretty good against the Eldritch matchup. Against Floowandereeze specifically, 1 Necroworld Banshee and Zombie World, but of course there's that occasional Tri-Brigade deck, so this also hurts them too. For back row heavy decks, 3 Twin Twisters, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. I was considering main decking this over Sword, but I decided I was like, nah, I want to make sure I'm up against a back row heavy strategy first before I do that. 2 Mystic Mine, just a good going second tool. And the cool thing about Mystic Mine is that even if it doesn't resolve, it forces out a negate. So that's the whole reason why I'm running it. And as I mentioned before, I am running the 3rd crossout. And last but not least, 1 copy of Red Reboot. And that's pretty much it. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.